Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall. And Kyle, I've got a question for you this week.
Go ahead. I love questions.
Have you ever stepped foot in a HomeGoods?
A HomeGoods? Like,
yeah.
Is that
That's a store? So your response makes me think the answer might be no.
No, I don't think so. Is that like a Hobby Lobby? I get a Hobby Lobby sort of. Flavor.
It's that level of eclectic, but it's like the TJ Maxx of HomeGoods, where it's like home stuff. So it's like bathroom and kitchen and all that kind of stuff. But it's also got like a lot of decorations, and there's like a food section. It's like
an IKEA.
It's so, but it not food as in you're eating it, like packaged goods.
Oh, okay.
Like types of teas and hot chocolates and like fucking tins of cookies and shit. It's that kind of, it's like, but it's like you took whatever, it's like you took all the stuff that didn't get sold at other places and put it all in one place. It's just like a very cluttered, chaotic, it's like it has the vibe of going through the home section of a Goodwill, but it's all actual packaged goods.
Okay.
But it has that vibe, and I didn't expect it to be as overwhelming as it was, but that place is fucking like, it's like it has the same people in it that would be like rampaging a Kohl's, you know?
Okay.
It has that vibe.
Is this an East Coast thing?
No, I think it's a national chain. It's run by the same people that run TJ Maxx. It's just I'd never been in one before, and Jules got a gift card, so we went in there. It's cool. Like there's stuff. We found stuff, but it's like it is such a chaotic experience that I wasn't expecting.
I mean, for me personally, going to any store is just a chaotic experience. I mean, like I'm going to the local grocery chains and just like running into shit. I'm yelling a lot.
Do you carry? Are you like? Do you like carry a knife with you or anything like to cut through the patches or?
No, this is Indiana, if you'll remember, and I think that if I did that, I would get shot by a local Good Samaritan
gun enthusiast.
Yeah, I think that's probably the outcome of me running around with a knife. Usually, it's like older women who are stopping me and like putting their hand on my arm and like, "Are you okay, honey?" And I'm usually just too freaked out by the being in a store, to really respond. I just kind of have total mental breakdowns in like Walmarts and Targets, and
I did my recent purchase of like good over ear noise canceling headphones has made grocery shopping a bit more tolerable.
Oh, sure,
I will say that.
Yeah, have you seen the movie Beau is Afraid?
I have.
You could basically picture that at all times as just like going out to places. It's just a fucking chaotic nightmare.
You've got a horde of seemingly almost mindless masses attacking you at will. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a who's the guy who painted the like notorious depictions of hell?
Fucking god damn it. What is that guy's name?
It's that guy. It's like one of those paintings. I keep
the
wanting
one where
to
people
say,
are getting like vivisected on racks and shit. Like it's
for whatever reason, the name that's coming to my brain is Brecht, and it's not Bertolt Brecht.
Hey, I'm coming up with Buñuel, who's a poet, so it's not.
It's not Buñuel either.
Yeah,
it's a B name, I'm pretty sure. And look,
I'm just gonna Google hell paintings real quick.
You'll find it. I guess we could have just looked it up, but I mean,
we don't do that on this show. Bosch.
Thank you. It's like a Bosch painting at all times, or at least my interpretation of what's happening to me. My perception, just when I'm in a store, it is a straight up Bosch hellscape. I don't shop often, so yeah. Well, hey, I'll have to check out a HomeGoods, see if I can choke down. Maybe I need like some like reverse, like sunglasses, like they have in.
You mean some reverse They Live glasses?
Yeah, like They Live glasses that show me the nice, comfortable version of reality that isn't hell, the sort of fake reality. I could put those on, and I could do all my shopping.
That would be. It would be such a fucking. Someone has to have made a fan sequel to They Live where the glasses do the opposite. That is such a fucking 2020 idea. It's ridiculous.
It's true. Somebody has to have done that one. Well, I need those to get my just sort of general shit done, because going outside is hell. Anyways,
yeah,
it's been an anxious couple of weeks, I gotta say. So without further ado, I guess we should
Let's
get
talk
into
about
our
the
CIA episode. Although we do have two quick things that I wanted to bring up. So we have an email. We got an email in from Ray. And here's what the email says. It says, "Hey y'all, long-ish time listener, first time meal giver. Ray here. At first, I was going to say for the message to ETs and feds, fuck the feds." This is referring to our big question from last episode, I do believe. But I think I'll send the song lyrics to Ray Stevens' "I'm My Own Grandpa." Close enough. Your fellow weirdo, Ray. I haven't heard "I'm My Own Grandpa" by Ray Stevens, but I'm going to have to look it up. But I'm also
it really makes me think of that fucking Futurama episode.
That's what I was thinking of too. But I'm also now realizing that the person who sent this email is Ray. And this is a song by somebody named Ray Stevens. So sort of wondering if this is maybe a self-promo in a way.
Yeah.
I'm going to maybe look up Ray Stevens, see if this is this is the person who's listening to our show. Maybe they've done a tribute song. Maybe Ray Stevens has done a song called "I Listen to It Gets Weird and I Send Them Emails." But who knows? Thank you, Ray, for the email. We appreciate it, as always. I also had a thing here. So we had a listener who dropped some info about our last episode that I wanted to bring up, and I tried to ask them sort of last minute, like, "Hey, do you mind if I mention what you said on the show?" I haven't given them enough time to respond. I'm gonna say what they said, and I'm not going to give their name, but we have a Discord listener who is knowledgeable, and so I appreciate them letting us know this stuff. And if you want us to like credit you in another episode, let me know. Here's what this wonderful listener said. Just for the sake of clarity, Oxcart, which is the CIA-funded project that I mentioned last episode, Oxcart was the CIA's version of the Blackbird, and it came first. Also known as the A-12 Oxcart, its top speed and specs are still classified. The SR-71 Blackbird came after and was basically the Air Force's version of the Oxcart. They are different in some subtle ways, but essentially the same aircraft. 12 Oxcarts are left in museums. One is on the Intrepid in NYC. I think the Air and Space Museum in DC has one as well. Probably the most beautiful aircraft made by human hands, and it was never intended to carry ordnance. Just cameras and a lot of speed to outrun surface-to-air missiles. Which leads me to a point. There's been probably 20 plus such classified aircraft since the 80s or so, probably way more. Some are just technical demonstrators like Project Tacit Blue, which led to the F-117 Nighthawk. Some may have been produced in some numbers. It really does make you wonder if the Blackbird was a product of the 60s, how far have we come since then? So, gotta hand it to them. I agree. How far have we come? There's a lot of stuff that when you research UFOs and the weird sort of projects like this, where you're like, wow, this feels pretty advanced for the time, and we are so many decades removed at this point that you do kind of wonder. It's a good question to ask, I think. So thank you for that information, because I think I kind of muddled my words about Oxcart because I don't know anything about that shit. Yeah. I don't know anything about like aircrafts and things like that. So I appreciate the information.
Oh, did you see there was one more email?
Oh, was there?
About the Des Moines guy emailed back and gave more specifics. I'm not going to fully dox what he said, even though I'm sure whatever. But I know exactly where this guy saw this UFO.
Really?
I've driven past this so many times.
No shit.
My parents went to high school at the place that he's the high school he mentions.
Shit.
That's like my hometown. Okay. So
wow.
West Des Moines UFOs. Hell yeah.
Hey, UFO. Maybe there's a West Des Moines UFO episode we gotta start looking into, see what's been going on around there, because that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to look for an Iowa UFO counter.
Maybe a UFO zapped your brain when you were young, still in Iowa, and this podcast is just it was a deterministic.
It's part of my holy mission given me by the aliens
that you're completely unaware of. It's just subconscious.
They planted it in my brain to make light of UFO cases.
If I'm taking a page out of ufologist book here, anything's possible. We can't dismiss all that bullshit we both just said.
True.
So
hey, it could happen.
It could. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention before we get into some of this is I named an organization called ATIC last episode, and I think I gave the wrong name. It actually, what it stands for is Air Technical Intelligence Center, which I think it has a different name now. But basically, this is an Air Force intelligence center for analyzing like military intelligence. So the CIA was working with them. Like a lot of the stuff that we talked about last week was just like multiple organizations that were formed and then were communicating back and forth between each other about UFOs. So all that being said, let's get back into this. We kind of talked about how there were some weird flubs with the CIA getting into contact with civilians who like thought they recorded messages from extraterrestrials and weird stuff like that.
They really made a boner of that whole thing.
They really bonered it up. I haven't. It's the worst boner I've seen since the Joker's Batman boner, which I would recommend everybody Google Joker Batman boner.
It's like Joker's like second appearance ever, maybe even first appearance,
something like that. He
talks about
the boner. Yeah. He gave Batman. He had a big boner with Batman. Go on.
I was about to launch into a thing where there's the whole fucking subsection of the Batman fandom who think Batman and Joker love each other and want to fuck each other, and so there's a lot of stuff you can play in there. So I'm sure if you want to play out any of those scenarios, go on AO3, look up probably. I don't know what would be the Batman and Joker's. Would it be like Bruce Joker,
the boner twins?
I was trying to think of their ship name, but yeah.
Oh, sure. I don't know. Well, why does a ship name have to be the two characters? I think you could like name a ship.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think they could be like the Boner brothers.
That's good. Okay.
God, maybe I shouldn't have like a familial word in there if they're going to be having sex. But I guess that's also just the thing that you could write about in fan fiction too. So what do I know? So, fuck, that really, really distracted me.
That's my job.
So after all this shit that I mentioned in the previous episode happened, it's like a couple months later, where the CIA is sort of tangoing with like quote unquote civilian UFO people, one of which is Major Donald Kehoe, who, if I'm remembering correctly, at the time that he's like causing a huge racket in the UFO community, he's like long retired from the military. But Kehoe is like one of the main people who is really trying to not trying to rattle, but like is making a public stink about the CIA's involvement in covering up UFO information. And one of the things that he charged them with was in 1958, he made some claims that the CIA was actually going out of their way to contact UFO eyewitnesses and like force them to not go public with their sightings. It honestly, I didn't like see what Kehoe's actual words were on this. I think it's from one of his interviews. It's almost definitely in one of his books. You could maybe go back to my Donald Kehoe episodes and find him talking about this stuff. But like, it almost feels like, because he was all about the silence group. You remember? He like had this name for this group that was like covertly working to silence him and other people who were seeking UFO disclosure type stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
Kehoe is such a he is just the blueprint for everything that would come after.
There are those people throughout UFO history that are just like that. Everyone then is just an imitation of for the next wave of UFO people, and Kehoe definitely feels like one of those.
Like it's crazy because like I actually, funny thing, I had a message from my dad recently. He'll like very rarely text me an article that he sees about UFO stuff.
Okay.
And this was something about like some sort of civilian committee that was like bringing up like, you know, kind of going to the government and saying, hey, tell us about UFOs or whatever bullshit. I didn't, to be completely honest, I saw what the article's like headline was about that. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not reading that. But it was like these, you know, you look at the way UFO shit is going down today. It's like everybody is taking notes from the Donald Kehoe playbook. It's like ex-military, sensationalized UFO stuff, assertion of a cover-up. It's and you're just, you know, you're making money off of that, or he was making money off of that. So the reason Kehoe was going after the CIA, saying you guys are telling eyewitnesses to not report their stories, is that in November 1957. The Office of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, sent a contact division agent to investigate this guy, Ralph C. Maher. And Maher was a photographer for KYW TV in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I was born. Not the TV station, but the town of
place.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Although
I was born in a TV station in Cleveland, Ohio. Sounds like the beginning of some like tall tale. Like
that could be an interesting story. Yeah. An interesting backdrop for a fascinating life, but that didn't happen to me. So, he took photographs. Maher took photographs in 1952 of a UFO. Actually, in the article that was written by Haynes, the guy who I'm getting all this info from, who did the mid 90s like analysis of CIA UFO documents.
Okay.
He you can see printings of the photos in the journal that he published. So he took these photos of a UFO, and this contact division CIA agent, whose name is, no fucking joke, Harry Real, Real. Like, It's almost
that's someone looking around a room trying to make up a fake name and coming up with the worst options.
Yeah.
Like
he first looks at a shag carpet, and then he looks at like a his leading officer at the CIA giving like the thumbs up, Harry Real.
It's like someone being. There's a poster about like looking for the truth or some shit.
Yeah,
and he's like, I can't say truth. Can't say truth.
Can't say truth.
Real.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy Harry Real gets in contact with Maher and gets copies of the UFO photos. So this is a CIA officer actually going out of their way to get UFO photos from a civilian.
Okay.
And
Bill Maher? Bill Maher?
Would be really funny.
Do they get some new rules too?
Yeah, that would be really funny. But no, this guy's name is Ralph. Nice try, Niall. You almost tricked me. So another officer named John Hazen in December 1957 then returns the 5 photographs of the supposed UFO to Maher and offers no comment on the photos, just returns them unceremoniously. Now, Maher wanted to he wanted to know what the analysis was of the CIA of these photos. And I guess Maher was actually trying to develop a TV program on the subject of UFOs. And he wanted to bring up the fact that an intelligence organization operating within the U.S. had looked at the photographs and like what they thought about them. Hazen, the CIA agent, basically tells Maher like, you shouldn't do that, but you're a U.S. citizen and you can decide what you want to do with this information. So then Kehoe gets in contact with Maher, and Maher tells him all about his contact with the CIA and the photographs. Now, Kehoe tries to reach out to the CIA, trying to get them to basically send him confirmation of Hazen, the CD agent, like confirmation of his employment to the agency in writing, because he wants to, expose the CIA as having more interest in UFOs than they let on.
Right.
Which is like, to be honest, kind of true. It's like a lot of this reads to me like Kehoe and a lot of these people, like Davidson, who I mentioned in the last episode, are like aware that these people are investigating UFOs at this time. Just like probably not for the reasons that they assert. Like these are people who are like operating from the extraterrestrial hypothesis angle. And so they want to, Kehoe wants this information in writing, and the agency says, fuck you, basically.
Okay.
They just refuse to give him information. Now, in response to this line of questioning and stuff from Kehoe, the aide to Dulles, who is currently director of Central Intelligence, this guy John Earman, which again it sounds like a bullshit name, John Earman. He was maybe scratching his ear when he had to think up a fake name, and that's what he came up with. John, scratching my ear. I'm a man. Okay, fine, we'll go with that. He sends him a letter that just is kind of like blowing smoke up Kehoe's ass. He basically tells him like, you're kind of barking up the wrong tree because the people who give a shit about this stuff is the Air Force. So you should talk to them. But the fact that they reply at all results in Kehoe saying like, look, like they're interested in UFOs. Like they're being secretive about it. And so like it continues to be a problem for the CIA.
So it seems like Kehoe will take anything as confirmation of what he wants to believe.
And you have to think about it like Kehoe, I don't know whether I want to just straight up call him a charlatan, but like his life is like his ability to work and live and make money is like based on the sensational shit he's saying about UFOs. He's getting talks, he's getting TV appearances, he's getting books, he's doing all this stuff and it's making money. So I think to have anything to say that the CIA is like interested in UFOs, it leaves the possibilities open for him to sensationalize about.
And it also lets him do the kind of I'm being throttled by the big bad government kind of thing of they're hiding all this information and don't want to tell me all this stuff. So.
Exactly. Now,
a lot of persecution complex.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. So Haynes, his assessment of a lot of the stuff that's coming out around this particular story is like he suggests that basically, yes, the CIA was keeping tabs on some UFO stuff, but it was really just like in case there were he says here, quote, agency officials felt the need to keep informed on UFOs, if only to alert the DCI, the Director of Central Intelligence, to the more sensational UFO reports and flaps. So it's like, if there is concern about UFOs, it's because there's the possibility of these big, like almost like the flaps of like 1952, 1947, whatever, they want to keep tabs on those things because it seems there was some worry about, panic and hysteria.
Yeah. Like a lot of things start flying over the country, then they're going to want to have some idea of what that is.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So all of this shit with Kehoe, Davidson, and just like ufologists pretty broadly continues into the 60s. Davidson was now saying that, quote, the CIA was solely responsible. This is where I think Davidson gets interesting to me, and I really need to look into this guy more specifically. He says that the CIA was solely responsible for creating the flying saucer Führer as a tool for Cold War psychological warfare since 1951. So he kind of like changes his tune a little bit to be more about like this flying saucer shit is like a tool that the CIA and these intelligence people are using.
It's a psyop.
Yeah, it's a psyop. That's where this also kind of starts. Now, one of the things that's weird is in the like early to mid 1960s, there are more breakouts of UFO sightings and like little mini flaps and such. At the time, DCI is now John McCone. And there were like, apparently in 1964, the White House had some discussions that I believe were public about what would we do if we actually discovered alien intelligence. What would be the response? This, of course, stirred more UFO frenzy. And so John McCone wanted an updated evaluation of UFOs from the CIA. And so the OSI reaches out to the contact division, and they're sent out to get more samples from UFO reports and sightings from civilians. Specifically from NICAP, which again, Donald Kehoe is the founder of one of the founders. But at the time, he was no longer active in the organization. They had also had the former DCI as a member of NICAP, if you'll recall. I forgot their name, but they're actually one of the things that's funny is like the guy who worked on NICAP with Kehoe, who was former CIA, is one of the names mentioned, and I'm going to bring this up towards the end a little bit. One of the names mentioned as a member of Majestic 12.
Okay.
So I think I'm remembering that correctly. Okay, so I double-checked, and yes, it was Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, who is one of the named members of Majestic 12.
Oh man, Majestic, like this was already feeling it's funny to look at this group of people and everything and how these ties go from CIA to NICAP and everything. Do people think NICAP is like a government asset?
I mean, maybe. I don't know whether I haven't looked into like claims like that specifically,
Yeah.
but like it wouldn't be the craziest leap. I mean, a lot of the times it's like you can't. Probably not. I'm gonna say probably not.
Okay.
But people out there probably maintain something like that. I know MUFON is like heavily scrutinized by a certain part of the culture as being that.
Gotcha.
But I haven't seen specifically. It's just like when you think about the fact that like this civilian organization did have this, important ex-intelligence guy as one of its foundational members, it is pretty weird.
Yeah, it just seems like a weird confluence that people just take that,
Yeah, very strange. Well, I mean, it's a key. It's honestly part of the Kehoe blueprint of like, I'm ex-military, I'm ex-intelligence, therefore you can trust me when I make crazy claims about UFOs and aliens.
True.
So they're reassessing UFOs by getting these samples out in the field. And they end up meeting with Richard Hall, who is the director of NICAP at that time. And they're handing off samples to these CIA agents. And they bring it back to the OSI. And Assistant Director to the OSI, Donald Chamberlain, tells McCone at the CIA that basically nothing has changed. This is maintaining our position of half disinterest in UFOs, which we don't believe to be an extraterrestrial phenomenon, nor a threat to national security. Like they're not too worried about it. Nothing's really changed. No evidence that there's or any like foreign interference either. Like that there's nothing there. Now they're still monitoring UFO reports, and they're also keeping tabs on what Project Blue Book is doing at this time. Now, because of public pressure and media frenzies and things like that, Blue Book kind of comes under scrutiny, and they decide to form a committee to review Project Blue Book's. The Air Force does. The Air Force forms a committee to, reassess Blue Book as well. Now they get this panel. I've mentioned this on episodes before. Like the panel's got like fucking Carl Sagan on it and stuff. And they basically report on Blue Book and say, we got nothing. There's nothing new to say here about what Blue Book is doing. It's the Air Force basically and CIA are still in lockstep about UFOs for the most part, at least publicly. And they said that they could find, quote, no UFO case which represented technological or scientific advances outside of a terrestrial framework. They're still kind of saying, like, we can still study UFOs, but, like, again, I'm getting the impression that, like, by this point, people don't seem to want to deal with it too much. Now, the House Armed Services Committee ends up having these very brief hearings on UFOs in 1966. Same results. There's nothing to see here. We don't find any new information. And everybody's still holding on to this position of all these sightings can be easily explained, basically. And a lot of the times, if they can't be explained, it's like there's insufficient information to even investigate the case. So people are like claiming to maintain this open mind thing, but I get the impression that like in the 60s, they're really not as interested, both in the Air Force and the CIA. And again, there's some question of like, is the Air Force's interest just the fact that like we have these secret projects that people sometimes see and shouldn't be seeing? That's always a question.
Yeah.
So these reports are coming out. There's a House hearing on UFOs, and it's still like a public issue. And there is this CBS Reports program that is like coming out and saying like, yes, the CIA has been involved in UFO analysis, and they had the do you remember the Robertson panel?
Yes.
Which was another, it's honestly, it feels a bit similar to me to the Condon committee in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Robertson was like on this program saying that like, hey, we did the Robertson panel. There's this full report on the deliberations and findings of the panel. We should declassify it. And the CIA says no. Which again, like we kind of talked about it, how like they will censor and release sanitized versions of stuff like that. But they don't want like their name in it, I guess. Like they don't want people to know the CIA is like backing these reports and committees and things for whatever reason.
Because public panic.
Yeah, I guess so. So Deputy Director Carl Weber of the OSI wrote, quote, wrote to the Air Force saying, quote, "We are most anxious that further publicity not be given to the information that the panel was sponsored by the CIA." They bring up, in fact, they tell them like, hey, there's already a sanitized version of these reports that the public can check out. And again, it's like we're over a decade removed from the Robertson panel, and people are just kind of like, hey, we know about that. It's been 13 years. Please disclose the rest of this shit. Like the CIA, like I can't tell if it's the CIA hiding something or like wanting to wash their hands of the whole thing. If it was that they wanted to wash their hands of it, it does kind of feel like it's like, fine, fuck, here you go. Here's the report. But I do wonder if there's some question, because I actually haven't read the Robertson panel stuff really.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder if like maybe it's just like at the time the information that's in there potentially pertains to Cold War sensitive stuff. And so they do not want it public. They do not want any information in the hands of the Soviets. That's what I wonder, maybe. I don't know.
That could be a reason. I think there also is just like an idea that the CIA projects and the NSA projects, like the more secretive organizations, they don't need a reason for you to not be able, like, they don't need a reason to hold something back from you. They need a reason for you to see it.
Yeah.
And they haven't gotten a reason for you to see it yet. So they're going to hold it back as far as it can go. Like, I think that they are anti-disclosure in like every way, because every time they disclose anything, it makes their jobs harder.
Yeah, for sure. So this like rumbling about the sanitized version of the report is hitting media again, and this science magazine called the Saturday Review like brings up the report and once again like puts the spotlight on the CIA and their interest in UFOs by bringing it up and how people want the entire document released.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a weird little tidbit. The CIA didn't know that this happened, but an atmospheric physicist from the University of Arizona named James McDonald had actually been shown the Durant report, which is, I think, the less sanitized version on the Robertson panel proceedings. He was shown that report in June 1966. And then he goes back to Wright-Patterson on June 30th of the same year, and he wants to get a copy of the report. But when he does, this time the Air Force is refusing to let him see it again, and they're saying that it's actually a CIA classified document.
Okay. So there's somebody out there who's already seen the thing and now knows that it's being suppressed.
Yeah, and McDonald starts to become a UFO guy, I guess. I hadn't heard of him before this, but he publicly goes out to say that the CIA was actually behind the policies of the Air Force of covering this shit up. And so he's on, another one of the big public voices demanding that this full report be released to the public. So in August of 1966, the Air Force decides they're going to put together this contract with a university to basically intensify investigations of UFO sightings.
Okay.
And the idea here seemed to be that they wanted to basically get people to fuck off who were coming after them, saying that they were like hiding UFO stuff.
Okay, they wanted to get rid of the people that were harassing them. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, this all leads to University of Colorado. They dump a couple $100,000 into it for this like study that goes over a year, and that's when they get Dr. Edward Condon to lead the program. And like Condon, this is all leading to the Condon report and all that. He is like this guy who, so he's the former director of the National Bureau of Standards and a physicist. And he claims to be agnostic about UFOs, but like kind of leaves the door ever so slightly open that extraterrestrial origins are a possible explanation. He straight up says that they were, quote, improbable, but not impossible. Which, like, I guess that's fair.
From a scientific view, that makes sense. Like, there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that's what it is, but there's also not hard evidence to say that's absolutely not what it is.
Yeah.
So,
but it's things like that let people like Kehoe kick the door open that they left.
Yeah. Oh,
cracked.
Of course.
So, 1967. There is this CIA National Photographic Interpretation Center, NPIC, and like the Condon Committee is working with them, and they're going back and forth to analyze photos of alleged UFOs, and they work through this stuff, but they want to, quote unquote, keep a low profile as always. They kind of, the way it reads to me is like the CIA is like, we're going to like have these organizations help with this report and analysis, but like we don't want to like say anything conclusive about any of it. They don't want to be acknowledged in any formal capacity whatsoever still.
Right.
So Condon ends up visiting the NPIC to like work on some technical stuff of like photo analysis of all these different UFO reports and photos. And NPIC's entire work, at least in Haynes' assessment, is completely technical and is like, not meant to mean anything, And so they do
crunching data, basically.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know exactly what goes into photo analysis in that way, but yeah, they're purely technically working on this and they have no opinion about the UFO subject.
Gotcha. Okay.
So through working with all this technical stuff with the photo analysis, there is this sort of like framing here that like we're doing scientific analysis of the UFO phenomenon and like data like photos that are being presented to us. And ultimately the CIA actually ends up agreeing through working with the Condon Committee that they can release the Durant report with only a couple small things deleted.
Like so they find and replace just CIA.
Yeah, I guess. So 1969, we get the official Condon report on UFOs. And again, we basically are told that in the past 2 decades, there is no reason to keep studying it. Like the Condon Committee is the point where the government's official stance seems to be like, we have no reason to keep looking into this. Now, this is what they're saying at the time. But this is also what leads to Project Blue Book being shelved. So after them just doubling down on analysis because the public won't fucking leave them alone about it, they're like, Blue Book's done. We don't need any of this. This is we're over it, basically. Now, the National Academy of Sciences actually reviewed the Condon report and agreed with their conclusion, saying that, quote, no high priority in UFO investigations is warranted by the data of the past 2 decades. And it ends saying, quote, on the basis of present knowledge, the least likely explanation of UFOs is the hypothesis of extraterrestrial visitations by intelligent beings. So 1969, December of 1969, Project Blue Book is officially terminated. It's over. It was a good run, I guess.
Yeah. Look, had a lot of laughs. Made a decent TV show 40 years later.
Yeah.
We
had fun. I think that's what's important. But like all these panels and committees and shit of the last like 20 years, ufologists are unsatisfied.
Of course.
It's still a very open question of the CIA's involvement in some sort of cover up. And I kind of get it, especially when you read shit like what went down with the Meyer sisters and like them being super. The thing is, I don't think that like ufologists are concluding correctly about what's happening here, that like they're trying to cover up the existence of aliens or whatever, but like they certainly seem to be like the CIA certainly seems to be paranoid about the UFO phenomenon in one way or another.
Their kind of bedside manner, so to speak, of dealing with the public leaves a lot to be desired, and does not do a good job of actually shutting down the questions they want to shut down, and instead, honestly, causes people to get a lot more curious.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of William Spalding, 1970s, right? That's where we're at now. This is the Watergate era, and we have like I would sort of say that the Watergate is like a big point. I feel like it doesn't get mentioned often enough in conjunction with UFO stuff, but like the fever pitch paranoia of like government distrust at this point is at an all-time high, and Watergate is a confirmation, right? So it's 1975. This guy, William Spalding, is head of this group called Ground Saucer Watch. He is convinced that the CIA is withholding still on their UFO stuff. So he writes to them questioning the authenticity of various reports that he had received from, his attempt to get information out of the CIA. And this guy, Gene Wilson, who is the information and privacy coordinator for the CIA at the time, says back to Spalding, quote, at no time prior to the formation of the Robertson panel and subsequent to the issuance of the panel's report has the CIA engaged in the study of the UFO phenomena. And he says that the Robertson panel report was, quote, the summation of agency interest and involvement in UFOs.
Okay.
Now, he says that there's no other documents related to UFOs in there, and it turns out that this guy working at the CIA was wrong.
Really?
So, September 1977, Spalding, with his organization, Ground Saucer Watch, are not convinced, and they filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the agency. And they do it specifically on the grounds that all UFO documents that the CIA has in their possession must be revealed. And this leads to just tons more Freedom of Information Act requests for the CIA and their information on the UFOs. And after some hand-wringing and bullshit, the CIA is like, okay, we're going to do a, quote, reasonable search of our files for UFO material. Now, obviously, the CIA is like not stoked about this. Like,
of course.
I kind of feel like, again, they're sort of like, why won't this fucking die? At least a lot of probably people in the organization feel that way. And probably especially the persons who were forced to do this search.
So yeah, because like they're it doesn't feel like they have some big holy grail that they're going to, if someone's going to find in there.
Yeah.
They just have a lot of stuff where they got annoyed and had to go out and do some field research. And then they have to 10 years later get annoyed again and release that stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, even if there was some sort of big holy grail of like what the CIA's involvement with UFOs was all about, it's like, do you really think that you would get a smoking gun type document? Do you not think that like you would just have this heavily redacted thing?
Yeah.
Or like, why would they even like pretend like
the CIA has the minutes of the meeting with the aliens at the Roswell base between FTR and the alien people back in the 40s.
Yeah, I think,
like, are you expecting that?
And I think like, even if they do have something, it's probably more likely, people saw Oxcart when they weren't supposed to. We're in the Cold War. We can't put this out. Like, people can't know about this. That's kind of that's my read, at least, if there is anything at all. So, the Office of General Counsel, Lonnie Zybel is the person who basically ends up working with agency officials to do this search through all the records to find out what they know about UFOs. So, one of my favorite tidbits about this is that through working with Zybel, who I guess was occasionally... The article describes Zybel as persistent, demanding, and even threatening at times. And they scour the agency, and they even actually managed to find an old UFO file that is under a secretary's desk.
Okay.
They ended up finding 355 documents that equaled out to 900 pages. And on December 14th, 1978, they released all but 57 documents to this guy's organization, to Ground Saucer Watch. And of those 57 documents, they've got about 100 pages that are not released. Now, like we said, the documents that were released did not produce a smoking gun. And Haynes's analysis is like, yeah, all this really told people is that the CIA's interest in UFOs is like fairly low.
But those other 100 pages would have done a lot more.
Yeah, but then like, because this stuff gets released and because it's in the hands of this UFO like group, it gets reported on in places like the New York Times that these documents that are now declassified confirm that there's intense government concern over UFOs and that the CIA was secretly surveilling UFOs, which, again, it's kind of true. So then they sue the CIA. The GSW sues the CIA because they want the documents that were not released, the 100 pages that were held back. And like, just because of the existence of these 100 pages, it's confirmation that there's something fucking crazy going on.
Yeah.
Now,
more, unlike what it probably actually is, which is what you were talking about, where it's stuff that directly references a classified aircraft or something. You know?
Exactly. So, Director of Central Intelligence at the time, Stansfield Turner, was apparently like not happy when he read the New York Times article about all this stuff, and reportedly asked senior officers, "Are we in UFOs?" And everything about that, I'm picturing like Burn After Reading shit.
Yeah, it really does have a Cohen-esque vibe to it.
Yeah. And the report that Turner gets back from agents is that, quote, "No organized agency effort to do research in connection with UFO phenomena, nor has there been an organized effort to collect intelligence on UFOs since the 1950s. So he's reassured that they hold only, quote, "sporadic instances of correspondence dealing with the subject," which would basically be just different, like various UFO sightings. But they weren't like actively going out of their way to collect information on UFOs. And the stuff that they gave to the GSW was like not that thoroughly like doctored or deleted. So they end up getting, because Turner is like, yeah, this all checks out, they end up working to get in 1980 the courts to dismiss the lawsuit. Because they basically were able to tell people like, well, we have conducted a thorough and adequate search in good faith. That's what the article says, and that's what Haynes's sort of assessment is. So throughout the 70s and 80s, they maintain this like extremely low, tab on UFOs and what's going on with that. But it's like at this point in time, the amount of information out there for like what the CIA's interest level is in UFOs, it just seems to have really, really, really dwindled. Now, I guess one way you could look at it too is like, I'm going to save that thought for the very end. So I'll come back to that. So CIA's like looking at UFO stuff at this time to maybe see if they could glean any information about Soviet like rockets and missiles. But other than that, there's not a lot going on. There's concerns that I think I mentioned this in the previous episode, but there were concerns that the Soviets and the KGB, like Soviet intelligence, were actually using UFO groups and U.S. citizens to get information about sensitive U.S. weapons development programs, like the stealth aircrafts of Oxcart.
It was what's that online game forum where they keep accidentally releasing like classified military documents?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean,
it's like that of this time. They're like, oh, there's a way in here. We've got weirdos seeing stuff that we can try to find information about, kind of glean information about secret military aircraft. Yeah.
It's what's also kind of crazy is like, and we've covered this in multiple episodes, but like around this time as well, 70s and 80s, this is when they're doing like psychic research, parapsychology, remote viewing, and things like that. Haynes kind of asserts like, that he says, quote, the agency took a conservative scientific view of these unconventional scientific issues. There's no official like organization or committee or anything within the CIA pertaining to UFOs at this time in the 80s. But they're still doing, weird ass shit with fucking Uri Geller and stuff. Like I don't know.
They've moved into a different area of weird fringe science.
Yeah. Once again, the 80s, the other problem that they run into is that the fucking Roswell shit has resurfaced at this point because of Bill Moore and the other people, mainly Bill Moore, but also like Jamie Chandray, and that whole cadre of people. They're like, they're asking to reassess the 1947 Roswell incident, which we don't have time to get into in here, but like it's another thing that reads like the CIA's like, oh my fucking God, shut the fuck up. God.
Leave us alone. God damn it. Yeah, I get
it. So like, we have the Roswell mythology, but what ends up happening as a result of this is like over time into the mid 90s, the Air Force ends up kind of releasing a report on what actually happened in New Mexico in 1947. It was, according to them, a top secret balloon operation called Project Mogul. And they were kind of like checking for evidence of Soviet interference and tests and just monitoring the atmosphere with this balloon, but it was top secret at the time. And that's what actually happened in 1947, that the crash was not a UFO. It was this like balloon, this secret balloon project. Now
it's really funny to think about secret balloon projects. Like, are they working with some fucking like
they're learning
brand new types of rubber?
They're trying to develop new balloon animal technology for the clown psychological operations that they do, which, by the way, I'm letting you know here, clowns are a psychological operation.
Okay, interesting. Like, are they working on trying to make like non-Euclidean geometry and balloon animals?
Yeah,
to
let's see
like
if
Cthulhu
how
and stuff?
far we can push it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, to keep a long story short, everything I outlined in these 2 episodes was the result of UFO researchers knocking at the CIA's door and creating, FOIA requests, trying to get every document they could from the CIA's research into UFOs. In 1994, there is another agency-wide search that resulted in the consolidation of CIA files on UFOs. And it's from these files that everything we discussed was analyzed by Haynes. All that stuff was in this like 1994 assessment of everything we knew that was made available from the CIA to the public about UFOs. Now, here's the thing. Here's my assessment after reading about the CIA and their relationship to UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
For the CIA, or just, I guess, intelligence broadly, I feel like UFOs really were a subject for alarm in the early years of the Cold War, but it pretty quickly became something that nobody wanted to deal with. But amidst the internal paranoia that led to projects like MK Ultra through like the 50s to the 60s, I think it's possible, it's worth speculating that the problem then transformed into a psychological operation of some kind. MK Ultra and all the aforementioned stuff seems like it could have opened up the possibility of utilizing these sort of fringe subjects like UFOs. Although I guess UFOs technically, it's not exactly fringe, right? Like not in the way that word might suggest, because like.
But there are people in the fringe of
the
the
fringe
UFO
of the UFO
community
community,
considered
sure.
fringe.
Yeah, like this stuff will like tantalize a significant amount of the population. I remember reading like it was like maybe in the 90s, it was like like a pretty good well over 50% of Americans were, I think, at least interested, if not believers, in UFOs. I wish I wrote that data actually down, but suffice to say, it tantalizes a significant amount of the population and then freaks the hell out of a small but non-negligible percentage of the population. And so like it's almost like there's a possibility that subjects like UFOs were opened up to possible use as psychological operations, or like public perception massaging stuff for in the intelligence community, which they're interested in managing the perception of the public. But I say all of that, it's a bit conspiratorial. None of that can be said for certain. But as I read about the CIA's relationship to UFOs, and it would like inevitably dead end at the mention of Majestic 12. We've talked about this a number of times before, and like, for those who don't know, Majestic 12 is very much a hoax document. But like Majestic 12 and the sort of confused, paranoid brand of ufology that crystallized in the 70s and then through the 80s in this like post-Watergate world, Majestic 12 somehow still fucking persists. And this was the thing that like completely shattered the UFO community. Like this is one of the many things, but this is like a big like touchstone, a big fracture point. Yeah. And alongside it, people started, taking note of like how you could grift with this stuff by being ex-military or ex-intelligence or whatever, and I don't know, playing in the space, so to speak. Like beyond just MJ12 bullshit, this stuff tends to lead back to as you read about the CIA's involvement, you eventually find yourself reading about notorious characters involved in stuff like MJ-12, people like Richard Doty, William Moore, and James Chandray, who I mentioned, but also like John Lear. And this revitalization of the Roswell crash of 1947, that mythology. Haynes, who did this article back in the mid-90s, he sort of offers like a shrug at the information uncovered from the 94 documents, but because of the paranoia that's sort of inherent to UFO research, or with a lot of those people too, they're concerned about the CIA seemed to have at one point been genuinely interested in monitoring UFO groups as sort of subversives. So
okay,
that's the open question: is like, are we? Is there still some sort of psychological operation being levied against the UFO community, or you know, do the fucking people who are coming out talking about whistleblower bullshit? Are they believable? What the hell is going on? My assessment, it's a lot of garbage.
Yeah, there does feel like a lot of attempts at a cash in right now.
Yeah, which again is a thing that has happened a number of times in the history of UFOs, especially in this country. So I don't know. I again, you can't definitively say like the CIA is using UFOs as a psyop, but I think it's a more reasonable explanation than some of the other shit I hear.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes a lot more sense. Like, they don't have, not every UFO sighting has to directly be a classified military craft.
Sure. Yeah,
but enough have happened, and they have kind of created this template. And so now it's like the actual term. It's mimetic in the real way.
Yeah,
where it has been created and now it is out in the world and goes on its own.
Yeah,
you know,
Rick Doty gets in contact with these UFO groups and spreads all this disinformation and shit. Impossible to say how much of it is just him being a weirdo and how much of it like if he actually was like, how much of it is like a directive, you know? But like, this shit kind of just works on its own now, and has been doing so for decades. And I think we'll just continue to do so. And, you know, hey, if you're ex-military, if you're ex-intelligence, why not make a couple bucks off it? I don't see why not.
Pick up a cheap domain and fucking put out like get someone to ghostwrite a book and go take on the festival circuit.
Yeah.
Not festival.
The UFO festival.
Go to the UFO conventions. Conventions.
We're like so early into this new administration coming into being, and I'm already fucking sick of the people talking about UFOs. I'm already over it. Sorry, UAPs. So sorry to end on a bit of a cynical note. How about a big question where we can do our own playing in the space?
Great. Let's take care of a big question.
Okay. If you were a member of the CIA's contact division tasked with investigating UFO researchers, what would your definitely very real name be while working in the field? Because I'm looking around. You know what? Like, I think we could use the same methodology we mentioned earlier of like looking around your room and figuring out what your name is based off of your surroundings, because it's kind of like you got to come up with something on the spot. Yeah, my problem is that I have actual like real names various places on my wall, and so I'm trying not to just immediately say my name would be Brian Danielson. Well, I have, so I'm looking around at my room here. I have these, bits of cardboard boxes. I have this thing over here that I can't even like take the time to explain that has the word grandma on it. So I think based off of looking around my immediate surroundings, my name would probably be Menard's Materials Grandma.
Okay.
So Or maybe Menard's Grandma Materials, so it's Menard's G Materials.
I didn't know you had to have a middle name in this, because
well, these people tend to, right?
Yeah,
like,
but Harry Real didn't.
I guess Harry Real didn't, but that's also they're very much that person's real name.
Yeah. Because currently what I'm looking at is I'm sitting right next to a poster for the band Sumac, so I was thinking Mac would be the first name, and then I was looking at there's an old poster I have with a band name called Owlsburg, so I was thinking Mac Owlsburg is like a good fake name, you know?
That's pretty. I like Mac Owlsburg. Now I'm kind of just having fun playing this game with myself.
I have to keep not saying Godzilla because I keep looking at Godzilla and there's no real way to make that a name. That's
my
real.
name could actually be Evangelion Iron Flask Anal, which is fun.
Of the Connecticut anals, yeah,
which
rich lineage.
Just to clarify why my name can be anal based on my surroundings, I do have, I have a series of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are called Spirit Message, and I do believe that what they're supposed to spell out is the word final. So each card has a letter on it, Final. I just have two A's, an N, and an L, so I have anal and Yu-Gi-Oh cards on my board here.
For the amount of Magic you've played and the amount of cards that I've seen you lug from apartment to apartment, it's kind of wild you've never come across an F or an I in there. You know, like it's just bad luck at this point.
It's I have a whole bunch of weird ass shit. I mean, I have a bunch of weird ass shit on my wall that are cards from games. I think ultimately I just chose not to get the F and the I because I like the anal.
Yeah. Hey, who doesn't?
So
okay. Let's see. I've got I have I'm trying to think of what I have a chart on optimal reverberation time by cubic footage.
That could just be your name right there.
Yeah, it's a real kind of effects of noise on man kind of name. Where it's the time in the axes are volume in thousands of cubic feet and time in seconds. So time in seconds, I think is a Lungfish album name.
Oh, I don't know. You would know better than me.
No, it's time in
Off
something
the
else.
dome at least.
Anyway,
well, I could do this forever. Religious audio box dream.
I think this is one of those bits that brevity is the soul of wit on. You know,
that's so true. That's what Shakespeare was doing, this exact bit when he came up with that idea.
Yeah, he came up with Henry VIII by just looking around his room. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Why did I pick a history for that? Anyway, go ahead.
You ready to take care of some business?
Yeah. So if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/It Gets Weird Podcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers. If you listen to It Gets Weird, if you listen to podcasts, look up It Gets Weird on any podcatcher, and we're almost certainly there.
You can also find us on Blue Sky at It Gets Weird. I snagged it. I snagged just the name It Gets Weird, which is exciting.
That is exciting. Do I follow that yet? I gotta go make sure I follow my own fucking podcast.
I've been not using Twitter as much, and have been looking at Blue Sky, which is slightly more palatable. Twitch.tv/It Gets Weird. Over the last weekend, we had a fun Twitch stream with me and Colin, so please give us a follow there if you like watching us play some games. That's a good place to do it. If you want to email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Just let us know how you'd like us to address you. Send us a cool story about UFOs, about ghosts, about conspiracies, whatever, and we'll read it on the show if it's a good one. Finally, and most importantly, patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a tip jar at the $1 level where you're not getting anything. You're just saying, hey, I like your show. Here's $1. Thanks for doing what you do. At the $2 tier, though, you get It Gets Weird TV, where every other week, Niall and I are talking about weird TV shows. We've talked about a lot of TV shows on there. There's a pretty sizable back catalog at the $2 tier. And right now, we're talking Neon Genesis Evangelion, which leaves me like a pig in shit. So check out the $2 tier. But if you want the most bang for your buck, there's the $5 tier where in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV, we talk on the world of weird about whatever the fuck we want to talk about. It's a lot of movie talk, a lot of music talk, occasional UFO stuff. So check it out at the $5 tier. But whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with our listeners directly about UFOs, Bigfoot, InfoWars getting acquired by The Onion.
Such a wild story from this week.
Fantastic story. So please check it out. Please donate if you can. But if you can't donate, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle signing out.